Alrighty, welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have our trade target video. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video. We're going to talk about all positions in the one video instead of separating them into separate videos. So bear with me. This is probably sort of a video you want to maybe listen to while you're trying to go to sleep, or just sort of like listen to as a podcast sort of video instead of a YouTube video, because it probably will go a little bit longer than what our normal videos go for. But anyway, I hope everyone's got a pretty clear idea of who they're trading in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the most traded in players, and then we're going to discuss after that. So we're not going to worry about the most traded out in my team, but when it comes to most traded in, Kieran Briggs is the number one guy. Now, I understand this because he's the only rookie that's on the bubble. It makes sense, but I don't like his role. I don't like his scoring. And another thing is, a lot of teams are becoming full primo now. So at this point, yeah, he's a good option on the bench, but I don't know what his job security is like, and I don't really know if we need cash gen. I think I would honestly rather have a player that is a cheaper if it allows me to get a premium that is, safe. If it gives me a Took Miller over a, okay, maybe not a Took Miller, but say it gives you like a 580k mid over a 560, and that's what the difference is between the 102s and the Kieran Briggs. So that's my logic with it, but I really think it's just subjective with the trade. So like, obviously your team might already have some cash, you don't need that, but for me and for my structure, I can't really afford to trade Kieran Briggs in now, because I don't have the trades left to keep swapping him in and out for players, because I don't think he'll keep his job. Unfortunately, I think I don't think he's that good. I know he had a 69, which isn't. It's pretty good for what he's capable of, but the role he has, I don't like it. Moving on to Lockheed now, so it's always better to talk about premiums than rookies. Rookies, you just don't know a lot about. When it comes to Lockheed Neal, we're pretty sure now his body's okay. He had a textbook Neal game on the weekend, 30 touches, like 10 tackles, just did it all. So with Neal, I think he's definitely a great option to bring in for 576. You got to remember, he started off the year at 720,000, I believe. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was definitely above 700,000. So you have to consider him for 576. Yeah. Paying 150k less than what he's potentially worth, and I think he could be number one mid from here on out. So definitely a lot of value to Lockheed Neal. I do think if I was thinking about bringing him in, I would wait one more week, not only just to see an extra performance and hopefully an extra ton, but also because he's probably going to get the O'Connor tag against the Cats this week, which is really not what we want to see. But yeah, with Lockheed Neal, he's a great option, obviously. We have to consider him. So Patrick Dangerfield's the number one forward option at this point, I believe, to trade in. Not many people are going to have him. I assume no one jumped on him this week. If they did, fair enough, but he's coming down in price. So with a break even of... Sorry guys, let me just change my camera real quick, because I had the wrong one on. Okay, so with a break even of 138, he probably gets below 500. He's definitely capable of a 138, no doubt about that. It is Patrick Dangerfield. But I don't think we're going to see those big 140 games from Dangerfield anymore. I think it's probably going to be a bit more around the 95 to 105 mark when it comes to these average. I hope I'm wrong, because I do plan on bringing him in as my F6, and I really do hope I'm wrong. But he just doesn't look like what he used to look like, and it used to be an automatic ton for Danger. I don't think he's in that same form as he used to be. But at the same time, anything under 500 for a guy named Patrick Dangerfield, you don't pass that up. So definitely one to watch over the next few weeks. Would I bring him in this week? You know what? If you needed to, definitely do it. He is capable of a 138. Like, even though I said I don't think he's going to do it, he's definitely capable. So he might not even go down in price. But we'll have to wait and see with Danger. I'm hoping he just has been a bit out of form, with the average of 82. Obviously, there's an injury game in there, but he hasn't been great. Scored the 95 last week. That was his best score for the year. So, it's definitely a good option to bring Patrick Dangerfield in. He's a superstar. Lockheed Bramble. So he played alright, 54. Nothing special. Don't know what his job security is like. Feels like there's a lot of those Hawthorn rookies that are sort of fighting each other for spots. Newcomb could be dropped. I don't know. We need to wait and see with Bramble, but I think he's a good option to bring in on the fact that he's 102k and he's more than likely going to play. So I really like the Bramble option. Would probably wait one more week if I could, but if you need to bring him in this week, definitely do so. We're going to talk about Scott Pantelbury. So the thing with Pendles is I think his role will change now that Buckley's gone. He sort of was thrown around all over the shop with Buckley there, but the only game they played the last game they played with Buckley, was a 167, but I think Buckley moved him back into the midfield, the perma mid role. So for me, I think Robert Harvey will play him in the guts full time. I think they saw enough from that Melbourne game to know, he's not a defender. He's still a gun mid and he can still pump out huge SuperCoach scores for us. So definitely look at Pantelbury for that price, 424k, man. He's a perennial 600k player. So definitely have to consider Pendles. Would I bring him in personally? I would. I definitely would. I love the value to him. I think he can genuinely be a top 6 mid from the rest of the season onwards. So yeah, Pendles, definitely consider him. Alright, let's have a look at the defenders now that we've got the top trading targets out of the way. So Callum Mills comes back, 563k, and I really, really like this pick. The thing with Mills is he has that midfield role. Break even of 122. He's probably going to float around the 550 to 570 mark for the rest of the season, I think. If he comes into some form, he might peak at 600k. I don't see him getting any higher than that. But Callum Mills has got the perfect role for a defender on SuperCoach, averaging the 112. He's as much a lock as anyone at this point. So if you can pick him up for a decent price like he is now, definitely do so. He's definitely the one I want to bring in as my F6 because I think he's a lock to be top 3 from here on out, which we got to remember when we're trading in players, we want to trade in players that we think can be top 6 for the rest of the season. Because at this point, when we don't have them in already, there's no point trading them in. There's no point considering what they've scored before because we've missed those points. We have to consider it as a history thing, but we're not going to trade in players based off what they scored before because literally, logically, we don't have those scores banked. So definitely keep an eye on Mills. I think he's going to be, number 1 mid pretty comfortably. Laird might push it. Stewart, I don't think he'll be number 1. I think he'll have a few quiet games now, but he is in great form, so we'll see. So we'll talk about Laird really quick. I'm pretty sure most will already have him. If you don't have him, please get him in. Break even at 59. You just need him. He's a lock every year, especially if he's a defender. Lock every single year. So Tom Stewart had a really good game on the weekend. Scored the 120. Probably should have had about a 140. If you to the naked eye, he looked like he played a much bigger game than that. Plenty of intercept marks. Pretty good efficiency, I think. So I'm not sure what happened with his scoring. But 120, we still take that every day of the week from Tom Stewart. In the 35% of teams, so I assume most people who are watching already have him as well. So definitely, if you're going to have Stewart, definitely bring him in. Same with Jake Lloyd. So these 4 guys you want to bring in. Laird, Stewart and Lloyd are pretty common players. Lloyd's in the 38% of teams. If you don't have him, I still think he's a great option just because, he's safe. He's a safe ton. Loves stat padding. He doesn't have the role he had last year, unfortunately. Dawson's taking a lot more kickings. So he doesn't have the role, but you know what? He's still a great SuperCoach player. So Daniel Rich is definitely someone to consider. If you don't have quite enough to go to Mills, I would be going to Daniel Rich. He takes all the kick-ins for Brisbane just about, averaging the 103.5, throw an average of 92, 5 an average of 96. I think the lowest he'll average from here on out is a 92, which isn't too bad for a D6. So definitely consider Daniel Rich. We'll talk about Sam Dockery real quick, and I've spoken about him before. The one thing I like about Dockery is it can work in his favour and it can work against him. He doesn't take really any kick-ins, which is good because he shows that he can score, tons fairly consistently. He's averaging 100.3. he can score without having to take the kick-ins, which means if he does start taking the kick-ins, which is possible, he's going to have that maybe 10, 15 point boost to his average, which is huge. So Dockery at 488k, definitely a good option. Would I bring him in? If you don't have enough to get rich, I would bring in Dockery. The thing with the players that take the kick-ins is you just know they're just guaranteed easy points. And that's why it's so appealing to SuperCoaches, because they don't have to fight for those kicks, you know? That's what Ridley was so good for at the start. Anyway, Dockery, I would put as a maybe. Jack Crisp, I don't really like him. Not him personally, but his role, the way he plays, I think he's a bit inconsistent. But I mean, yeah, I could see why people would grab him as a pod, only 4% of teams, but I just don't like his role. Jaden Short, he's not too bad of a price. Seems to be taking all the kick-ins now. And I think if Hooley takes as many, and if Hooley takes them, it seems like he goes short to short anyway. So, the short kicks inside their defensive 50, they always sort of chip it around to each other anyway. So, Jaden Short, he loves to kick the ball. That's a good thing. So, averaging 97, it looks like he plays better than what he averages, but I'd still consider Short just because he's in so many teams. It sort of equalises if you're falling behind a little bit. So, yeah, Jaden Short, I'm not too sure about him. I probably wouldn't bring him in personally, but I could see why people would, as just, an equaliser to everyone else's team. Blake Hardwick, only in the 1% of teams. Don't think he's really relevant. Jordan Ridley, so he's took a lot more kick-ins this week. I might actually look at the AFL kick-ins for round, could have been round 14. There it is there. So we'll go through the kick-ins just quickly. So Tui took 6, Stuart took 3, Dale took 5, Dre took 4, Lukosius took 5, Bose 2. So Bose is a really weird one because he was playing forward. I swear the second half he played like all forward. And Lukosius has just completely screwed his scoring, unfortunately. Jonas took 2, Paul aren't really relevant kicking wise. Zeeble 8, Hall 6. This is what's so good about North. They only let those two take it kick-ins, which that's why I think both of those guys are forward locks. Daniel Rich 8. See, that's huge. Yeah, that's massive. Isaac Cumming 9. So he's a good option. So we'll talk about Cumming real quick. So he had the 113. Looks like he's taking kick-ins for the majority of the time. Anyway, let's move on to Ridley real quick because this is what we came here for. So Ridley took 7. Okay. I thought Redmond had actually taken more initially. But for Ridley to take 7, it looks like he might have that rollback, which is huge for our teams. If that is the case, what is his break even? 73. I'd maybe wait one more week on Ridley if you can. Just make sure he has that rollback. If he has 6+ kick-ins or 5+ kick-ins, I'm happy with that. Because at the end of the day, he can still intercept mark. The intercept marking and stuff will get him maybe an 80 score. But if he has those kick-ins as well, he can genuinely go 120+ every week. Like, we forget what this guy was scoring at the start. So he had a 125, a 136, 147, 124. So Ridley, I mean, he's worth 600k at his best. So we know what he's capable of. I definitely think he's our best buy this week for 456k. If you don't have him, this is the absolute time to get him. I think I paid 600 for him. That's how important he was at the start of the year. So Aliir, we're not going to talk about. He's good, but I don't think he has a SuperCoach friendly role. Dawson, no. Cumming, yeah, maybe, because he's taking kick-ins now. Harris Andrews, no. Salem's really dropped off. Throw an average of 73, that's bad. Darcy Moore and Braden Maynard, I don't like those two as options. And that will pretty much do it. So CJ, he went off for a bit, but I just don't see him averaging 100 from here on out. Dan Houston's one, if you really don't have much money, 439k, he's a decent buy. He had a good patch of form somewhere here. So 156, 95, 116, but then 48. He's a known burn man. I wouldn't pick up Houston. Stephen May is still a good option, averaging the 102.3 on average. Obviously has that low average because of the 7 game, but last 3 weeks he's been really good for 400k or whatever most people paid for him. The 90, 106, 111, You'd definitely be happy with that if for May owners. We'll talk about Caleb Daniel. So Luke Ryan, actually, he's averaging 106, going really under the radar. Pretty sure he takes the kick-ins for Freo. Let me just find... I didn't play this week. Let's have a look at round 13. There's Lukey Ryan. So we'll go through these ones quickly. So McKenzie, Jake Lloyd took 3, Dawson 0. See, they don't take enough. Bergwijn took 4. Luke Ryan 8. Yeah, there you go. So he's taking most of the kick-ins there. That's a really good sign for Ryan owners. I think he's a good pod. He's definitely up there with Callum Mills, averaging the 107. I think Mills is just a tiny bit better. But definitely have to consider Luke Ryan, only in the, 8% of teams now. Okay, so people are trading him in, but still a pod. Caleb Daniel, don't like this pick. I know he can ton, and, but he has been good since round 7, besides that 61. But yeah, I just don't trust him. We know what Bevo's like. He can swing the magnets around at any given time. So I wouldn't be going near Caleb Daniel, unfortunately. I think that will probably do it for our defenders this week. Yeah, I don't think there's really any more relevant defenders. Let's move on to the midfield, which is the most important field by far. So, we've got the Bont, Mcrae. We're going to talk about both of them. Both great options. Would I pay $690k for Bont? Probably not at this point. If you really are just having an amazing year and you've got plenty of cash gen and you are looking for maybe one more upgrade or 2 more upgrades, definitely grab Bont, because he's worth $690 for a reason. Averaging the 128, just having an unbelievable year. For whatever reason, he's not getting tagged. I find that really stupid. He should be the first player tagged every week. But he's not being tagged, which is great for Bont owners, and we knew he was capable of a close to 130 average if he doesn't get tagged. So great pick for everyone that traded in Bont or had started with him this year. He's been stellar for you guys. Sorry, I'm just getting more comfortable. Jack Mcrae, so first game under a ton. Expect him to bounce back. He actually played it right, just butchered it. That was the only problem. He had plenty of the ball. But yeah, I mean, his scoring speaks for itself. If you don't have him, you need to get him in by the end of the season. Same with Clayton Oliver. So these sort of 3 guys are all in the same boat. Bont, Mcrae and Oliver. Just absolute locks. You need to have at least 2 of them, in my opinion, in your final team. And for me, it's Mcrae and Oliver. I'd love to flip a Brayshaw to Bont. I don't think I'll have the luxury to do that, but yeah, if you can, try and do something like that. So Jared Lyons, still a massive pod. Great captain option. Only in 8% of teams, averaging the 121.2. Seems like he'll be fine with Neil slotting back in the team. I think Zorko will be the one that gets affected the most, which is annoying for Zorko owners, obviously. But I was thinking in hindsight, we actually could have potentially traded Zorko after we knew he was suspended, because not only would we have had another premium for that middle buy, the 13 one, we also would have had another premium for the round 14 buy, because we missed him both weeks. So, and we cashed in a 600k player, but it's sort of being a bit bold and daring to trade out a 600k player who's in great form. But knowing that Neil was coming back, that's where it sort of makes me think we probably should have traded him. I don't know, who knows? Zorko might come out this week and drop a 150, who knows? But it's just something to think about. Jack Steele, I don't know what this V means. It's just my vice captain and captain. I swear that's never usually there. Anyway, he's just as much a lock as anyone. I traded him in round 11, got very lucky. 154, 140, 126. Effortless scorer, tackles heaps. He just knows how to score on SuperCoach. And same with Toby Miller. They're very similar players. They're both ball magnets. They both love to tackle. Miller's a little bit expensive at the moment, so I probably wouldn't be bringing him in, but if you do have the money and you do want a pod, Toby Miller's a great option, 7% of teams. It's huge. So Darcy Parish with the 115, coming back down to earth a bit now. I think he's still only got a break even of 110. So he'll be 680k this week. It's actually crazy to think Darcy Parish is that much. I think he was a forward mid last year for about 350k. Could you imagine if he was a forward now? Oh my goodness. But he's probably been the most improved player this year in the competition, to be honest. He's had an unbelievable year. definitely someone to consider for next year. It's weird. He doesn't get tagged. They always go to Merritt, and you'd think, Parish is so much more damaging, and I think he's just overall a better player than Merritt, but they don't always go to Merritt for whatever reason. So Darcy Parish, if he's not going to get any attention from oppositions, he's a great option. It's just that price tag, I don't like it this week, unfortunately. Cam Guthrie's dropped a little bit, so his break-even's a 160. Probably wait a week on him. Might get to 570k, and we obviously know what he's capable of. But the thing is, Dangerfield is back now, so that affects his scoring a little bit, I believe. Sam Walsh. So Walsh, I'm a biased Carlton supporter, and I thought he was a really great pick. I didn't do enough research because if you look here, he's got the last game of the season, which will be our SuperCoach Grand Finals. He plays GWS, which means Matt DeBoer tagged once again. So that really hurts us come Grand Final time. I don't think he's going to go big in that last week. I think they're going to put a hard tag on him like they did this week. So for Walsh owners, it's definitely something to be cautious of. Had I known that, I wouldn't have ever traded him in the first place. And obviously, it's a long way back since I traded him in. To research all the way to the last round is probably a bit of a stretch, but yeah, it hurts to have Walsh probably going to go sub 100 in that last round. Anyway, probably wouldn't bring in Sam Walsh anyway. 30% of teams though, so most teams do have him, so that's a good thing for my sake if you already have him, but it's for the people that don't bring him in. There we spoke about. Merritt's still a really nice price for 110 average. You know what you're going to get with him. He's pretty consistent. I think he got tagged on the weekend as well, so a 93 with a tag is pretty good. The weeks he doesn't get tagged, he's a genuine 140, 150 caliber player. So Merritt, you have to consider him, but I think Parish is a better option. Obviously, there's a 100k difference in the two. Is the 100k justified between them? Probably not quite. The only thing that is that good, as I said with Parish, is he doesn't get the tag like Merritt does. So Merritt, would I bring him in? Probably not, but he's a good option. Like he's a solid option. Zorko, I don't know how Neil affects his role. He wasn't scoring amazingly before Neil came back, so we had the couple of 70s, a 60. So he's only had 2 real bad games, which isn't too bad, but ever since Neil went out, 105, 140, 117, 162, 122. Sorry, I got a sore throat. Would I bring in Dane Zorko? Not for 600k. I think you can definitely get him discounted. Tom Mitchell, it feels like he's been around 560k most of the season. Started off well, I believe. No, started off slow. I think he came good sort of towards the end. I don't know. He had a good patch somewhere. But maybe he started off well. Yeah, he started off well with 135, 109, 89, 107. Then it was a 76, 90. He's hot and cold. It's really weird. He's a weird pick, Tom Mitchell. Yeah, I don't know if I'd bring him in. 20-30% of teams, I think there's better options. Wines is 600k, so he's hit some stellar form, 132 average in the last 3 rounds. Definitely have to consider him. He's probably the Brownlow favourite at the moment, up there with Bolton and Oliver, and maybe Mcrae. But I think he's more of a fantasy player, to be honest. Had like 160 AFL fantasy and 117 SuperCoach, so I think he does butcher it a little bit. So maybe not. Maybe Wines isn't the best option. Fife's just simply too injury prone. Selwood's really defying the odds because he's playing really well. 527k, not a bad price. Wouldn't grab him though, just because you don't know with Dangerfield coming back, like how it affects him on the long run. Obviously he played well this week, but it might not happen every week. Josh Kelly got hurt, so that score is a little bit undersold because he was on track for a massive score before he got hurt, but he played out the game, so he gave everyone a ton, which is huge for Kelly owners. But yeah. So in terms of the other mids, we're not going to really discuss it on. We already talked about Neil. Brayshaw's not worth discussing. Lib is a good pod. McCluggage, no. And Petrarca, I don't like the pick at all. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the mids. We'll talk about the rucks briefly. Alright, so Gawn and Grundy, obviously you need to have them both if you don't have them. Nick Nat's a decent option, but there's still 8 points between Nick Nat and Grundy, and that includes Grundy's injured game. Sean Darcy's a decent little pod. If you don't have enough for anything under 600k, I'd probably go Sean Darcy. Wouldn't jump on Mumford. Coleman Jones is still a good, decent price, considering he's got a break even -27. If you don't have him yet, still bring him in. And Draper played well. I don't think that was a bit of a fluke though. And then hopefully Reeves comes back. So that's what we are relying on. Old Ned Reeves to come back. Where is he? There he is with the 86 average. Fingers crossed he comes back. And last but not least, well, probably our least to be honest, the forwards. So we're up to 25 minutes here. The forwards, obviously Zeeble you need to bring in. Zorko, not a must-have by any stretch of the imagination. Toby Grant's someone I had in a few weeks ago, but I reversed a trade. I still don't fully trust him. I know he's scoring well, and I know he's playing well. I still don't fully trust him, though. I don't think you should either. He's a genuine risk to get suspended. Not only that, but he could also have really... If he doesn't kick goals, he's probably going to struggle to score, Supercoach-wise. Shy Bolton, I think, is a really good pick. I always say with Bolton, what if he doesn't kick goals, He might not score if he doesn't kick goals, but it seems like he's kicking goals every week. He's got the midfield time that Toby Grant doesn't really have. Grant gets sort of stuck on the half-forward flank or forward line. But Bolton seems like playing mostly mid. And I think they trust him there. So I think he's got good role security. And I think he's actually a better option than Dusty. So definitely look at bringing Aaron Hall. Shy Bolton in. Dusty, he's still so cheap. So definitely have to consider him. Averaging 97? So it's pretty much a Dusty home and away season average. Obviously in the finals he turns it up to a 150. So Dusty you have to consider for that price, unfortunately. Even though I know he's a burn man, you have to consider him. Aaron Hall should be the number 1 or 2 forward. You take out those 2 injury games, averaging 115. Just a superstar. Nick Hines, so I think that was a bit of a fluke week. He played so well. Watching him, it looked like he just dominated. Kicked an unreal goal on the run. But I don't think he's worth bringing in over someone like an Aaron Hall. If he's an F6, maybe. F5, F6, maybe. Bailey Dale had a really poor game. Don't know what happened with him. Feel sorry for the people that traded him in this week. Break even of 144. Probably be able to get him discounted. Maybe our F6. I still think Dangerfield and Dusty, one of those two have to be your last upgrade if you don't have them. But that is pretty much it. We're not going to talk about any other forwards because they're just not relevant. Kyle Langford, I know he played bad, but I think he'll be okay. And I know I spoke him up. I traded him in. I think he'll be okay. Don't worry too much for Langford owners. He'll be fine, I believe. Stringer won't go at 180 every week. And then that's pretty much it. So Rowan Marshall, I don't think it's worth considering. Buddy Franklin's not. That will do it for the trade targets. It's been definitely a long video, 28 minutes. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you stayed to the end, thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the final teams.